Out, my friends, the one, the only Master Chief, Mr. Steve Downs. I would say welcome to Florida, but I gather this is just a drive down the highway.
Just a little pop up the street. I live in Sarasota, so.
So I mentioned to everybody, we've got two audience Q&A mics set up over here and over here. Go ahead and start lining up. Those of you who were like, oh, I'm going to cool my heels, I'm not going to stand up for a million years. So if you don't go get in line now, you're going to be the 12th person in line, and just know your luck. We'll get to 11 people. So go ahead and line up. I'm gonna kick things off. Sorry, Steve. I'm just for no reason. I switched over to the video thing on my phone. I don't know why. I reversed the angle. So Steve, about the Halo TV show. Totally casual. Not gonna post this on the internet. Pablo Schreiber has had some very kind things to say about you. Our Master Chief in live action. I wonder, I don't know, what do you think of this guy, Pablo Schreiber?
Well, actually, Pablo and I have a little bit of a long-distance bromance going on, so we're in the Mutual Admiration Society, and I think he does a phenomenal job in the TV series, and I'm proud to share the helmet with him from time to time. How do you like that?
Nobody on Reddit's going to find this particularly controversial. I mentioned this. I was at the South by Southwest premiere of the pilot of the show. Jen Taylor was there doing Q&A, so she was texting you throughout.
She was.
Cortana is always texting in the middle of things.
In very Cortana-like fashion.
How surreal has this whole journey been for you? But more specifically, this TV show that they've been trying to get done as a movie, as a TV show for a long time. Yeah. What is it like seeing that finally happen? Getting to see Jen finally on screen as Cortana, getting to see so many of the things from the gaming universe that the two of you have been a part of for the better part of 20 years.
Well, having Jen be a part of it, of course, solidifies the whole thing for me. Because I don't think I'm talking too far out of school, but that was not, from what I had heard, was not part of the original plan for the TV show. And then some changes were made, and I was sort of screaming from the rafters, why don't you use Jen? And so they heard me, or not. But that made all the sense in the world to me. So, but surreal would be the right word for the entire 22 years that Halo has been, on the planet or in the galaxy, as it were. And to see the television program finally come to fruition. First it was going to be a movie, and then there was all these various iterations that may or may not have launched. And finally, it made it to the screen. And so for me, of course, it's a different experience, I suppose, but really not that much than anybody who's been a fan of the game, all these years. Is that I think it's important, and I know that Kiki Wolfkill, who is the executive producer and has been a part of 343, for as long as I've known, has said that you have to approach this, with a different set of eyes. Yes, it's Halo, and yes, it's familiar, but it's not the same. And any attempt that I'm aware of, where they've tried to take a video game from the video game medium to either television or film, when they try to replicate it on sort of a shot-for-shot basis, it's doomed to failure, because they're two different mediums. There's the video game medium, and there's the film medium, and they're very different. So when the show first came on the air, first of all, I'm a fan of science fiction in general, so I approached it like, I want, this is science fiction, and I hope it's good. And I would, sort of looked at it as I did any other, new science fiction film or TV show would be, is that you say, okay, entertain me, here we go. And I think they've done a fabulous job, and I really enjoyed the story. You know, you get these little nuggets that are familiar in terms of the game lore, and then, you know, there's things that you know, have nothing to do with the game. I guess my only criticism would be, how come there were no sex scenes in the game?
So,
I mean, come on!
come on. I get, you know.
You know, it's not too much to ask.
Hard light technology!
It's going to be a real different game.
It's going to be a very different game.
So I got to ask you, I asked the producers this at the screening. I asked them, so Hollow does a great job. A lot of fans are really happy to see Jen in the show. You probably would be violating NDAs to confirm anything about where they might go with bringing you onto the show in some sort of role, cameo or whatever. But if you had your choice, what kind of a cameo would you want? Would you want to just be a quick little, you know, like you get a one-liner that's kind of funny? Would you want to be in a battle sequence? Is there in the back of your head that'd be fun if, you know, they let me do this?
I don't know, I had a sort of fantasy that there's some battle scene coming up, and the chief is going to, you know, into the armory basically to get his weapons, and the guy who's issuing the weapons is me. and then maybe we don't, you know, this is just my fantasy, and that we don't really have any exchange of words. It's just kind of a look of like, and move on.
You pick one up, you weigh it a little bit.
Yeah. Pick up a lighter one.
Lighter one, yeah. This one's more your speed.
I think you can handle this.
I'm going to ask you one more thing, then we're going to turn it over to the audience. A lot of us here, big fans of a game that you're in, that we have played. I know that you are particularly a fan of a specific game, and that's golf.
I am, yes.
What is it about golf that has captivated you? Are you one of these, you know, meditative golfers for whom it's kind of a religious experience? You just
It is a quasi-religious experience. It can be a hellish experience from time to time, especially midsummer in Florida. But I don't know. You know, I picked it up, and you know, it's you know, something old men can still do when they're old men. So I do enjoy it. I enjoy the, you know, the being outside in nature, the camaraderie, you know, that constant, you know, thing of, you know, I'm this close to being good. You know, and you're always in golf. You're always maybe this close, and you never quite get there. But I don't know. It's just fun for me, and I do it obsessively, and you know, you got to be obsessed about something. So I picked that.
Oh, none of us can relate. Being obsessed with something.
Yeah, right.
Let's.
Those of you who have spent long nights in the basement, never seeing sunlight for days on end, you know nothing about obsession.
My team needed a sniper. So
Yeah.
I had to stay all 48 hours. Let's start over here with Bane.
Hello.
Howdy.
I just want to start it off by saying thank you for the way you have impacted my life and the life of so many others.
Only the good parts. I have nothing to do with the bad parts,
My earliest
including your choice of headwear. But go on.
Two are better than one. My earliest memories in gaming are Halo. Before I had internet or Xbox Live when I was little, I've put countless hours in just replaying the campaigns. And there's stories that even today I go back towards, and I still enjoy it, like I'm playing it for the first time.
Well, that's a high compliment to the developers and the writers, and you know, when you could say that you know, you can go back, you know, like a good movie, that you can go back and watch it over and over again and still get some pleasure out of it, and hopefully, you know, something new out of it, you know, on the 10th time or whatever.
And I know a lot of people, and me included growing up, loved superheroes, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, that group of the people that were larger than life that you looked up to. But for me, at the top of that list was Master Chief as a character. he's always fighting, no matter the situation. He just kept persevering and he never cracked under pressure, no matter what the task ahead of him was. And that inspired me when I was growing up, and it still does to this day when I think about he would finish the fight.
Yeah, indeed. Well, if there's nothing else you take away from the story of Master Chief, I think that's probably the best. You know, his tenacity and his never give upness, you know, I think that's a good. You know, if that's an inspiration, then you know, we've done our job. That's for sure.
And for my question, you've been in this series for over 20 years now. I mean, I was only born 2 months before the first game came out, so it's been a part of my whole life. Is there still moments where you think about what it's like to be one of the faces of gaming as a whole?
Well, yeah. I don't know that I dwell on that part of it as much as just being more grateful to have fallen into, and really that's all it was. It was a happy accident that I, you know, became the voice of you know, a character who has become such an icon. So I don't know that I dwell on that part, although I did have a moment last night out by the fire pit in the hotel I was staying, enjoying a nice cigar and a fine bourbon, and thinking, how did I get here? The old talking head song, how did I work this? You know?
And my question is, wait a minute, how do I get there? That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. You know, it's just it's a humbling and grateful experience, and really the most impactful part of it all, other than the actual recording of the game. People ask me, what's your favorite part of being Master Chief and all that, and my favorite part is actually doing it. When the call comes in and it's time to start work on the next game, and the preparation for that, and meeting with the writers and the director and all that, and then actually going into the booth for the first time and getting the story and seeing where we're going, that's the most exciting part. I mean, it's just like getting back on a horse again, like, let's ride this boy and see where we go. And I still really I'm probably more excited about it now than I've ever been since, you know, since Combat Evolved. But beyond that is hearing the stories that I hear when I come to things like this, and you know, things like what you just said about how impactful, you know, the story and that character in particular were. Those are, it's fascinating and meaningful to me, and really, to be honest, helps to influence how I approach the next game in terms of acting. You know, your stories are kind of in the back of my head as we're going into, you know, record new material for Halo. So it really is, you know, an impactful kind of exchange that we end up having, you and I, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Exactly.
Over here.
Sure thing. As a Chicago native, I wanted to say thank you for making my drive, my commute in the morning that much more exciting.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
yeah,
Those are the days.
the host of 97.1 The Drive. I wanted to say, I know the worlds of classic rock DJ and Saving the World from Aliens are just worlds apart. Was there ever a time you went on air, either on that or on any other syndicated shows that you do, as Master Chief or with his voice?
Not until the very, very end of my radio career. I retired from being a radio disc jockey in 2015. And it was up until that point. So Halo came out in 2001. So I went a good 14 years where these two worlds existed in my little brain, but never the twain would meet. The longer the game existed, obviously the older we all got, And the audience that was listening to classic rock, or they sort of the gaming audience kind of grew into that, right? And I would, in the last 3 or 4 years of my career, I would start to see, people would listen to me. I did the morning show for 14 years, and people would, they had no idea that I had this other life. And I wouldn't talk about it on the radio because I didn't think it was relevant to the audience that I was talking to. Well, that started to change the longer the game went on, the older the audience, the younger part of my audience got. They started to get it. They said, wait a minute, aren't you that guy? And, but it wasn't until literally the very end of the time that I was on the radio that I actually even ever talked about it. And it was weird. I don't know, to this day, I don't know why I was uncomfortable talking about it. There was sort of this, you want to hear that stuff, you want to hear Led Zeppelin, And then, but towards the end of it, like, no, we want to hear the Master Chief stuff, So it was at the very end where those two worlds began to collide, if you will.
Thank you.
Sure.
Paramount Plus subscriptions.
There you go. You're selling Paramount Plus.
Over here.
Hello, Mr. Steve.
Hi there.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure.
Halo dominated my whole middle school years, so something from those years, and some of the audience, older fans, you might remember this. First off, have you ever seen 100 Ways to Die in Halo 3, and if so, what's your favorite death from that video?
I have not seen that.
Have you seen Red versus Blue?
A little bit, but I'm not, I've never had any direct involvement with it, so.
What do you think about the explosion of those fan-created videos, whether revoice stuff like Red versus Blue,
Yeah.
or compilation videos?
Well, I mean,
What's it
some
like
of
seeing that stuff crop up?
some of it's amazing. Some of it is like, wow, this is a professional, Hollywood production. And I've been asked to participate in some of them, but you start to get into, I think Microsoft has a tolerance for it, but that there's probably a limit. And me starting to voice stuff in these might be crossing that line.
At a certain point, they take back the keys of the world.
Yeah, right. Take back the keys of the war are very good. Ground me my pelican permits, but some of them are really impressive in terms of what they actually come up with for quote unquote amateur filmmakers.
And lastly, have you met the Act Man in person?
I have not.
Okay. Just, you're in the outro of his videos, right?
No.
Subscribe to the Act Man.
I do not know this. I don't know who the Axeman is.
Wait, so is that not actually you? I'm confused. Okay, well.
We're learning things today.
Yeah,
That's the takeaway.
my learning curve is apparently low.
Steve, you should be taking notes.
I will. I will look into it post haste.
Right over here.
Sorry. Hello. I've kind of recently gotten into the series, but Halo has kind of always been a part of my family. But what's your favorite non-Halo related game, and why is it favorite?
Well, this will come as maybe somewhat of a surprise to you, but I'm not much of a gamer. When Halo 2 came out, I said, Steve, you really got to get involved here and see what this is all about. So I got myself an Xbox, got a copy of the game, sat down in front of the TV one night, and if you remember in the beginning of Halo 2, he's in a room, right? And I need a weapon, and how he goes to. But the thing is, he has to be able to leave the room that he's in. I spent an hour and a half, and I was like, I don't get it. There's no exit sign. There's no little arrow going this way. You figure after an hour and a half they would get, okay, this moron doesn't know what he's doing, let's help him out. And I'm literally just, frustrated beyond belief. I couldn't get him out of the goddamn room. So anyway, the moral of the story was, Steve, you're not much of a gamer. So, and I thought, in my particular case, I either have to be halfway decent or don't play at all. And I was a long way from being halfway decent. I wasn't a 10th way decent. So I decided that, whatever skills you guys have, I do not possess. And in all honesty, what attracted me to the story in the beginning and my involvement in it was the story. And that's where my passion lies. And what I was blessed because there's so much great source material, behind Halo with the books and everything, that it really helped me to sort of deepen my interest and understanding of the universe and of the character. And that's where I went there rather than going in the gaming direction.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, but to answer your question, my favorite video game, not including Halo, is Pong. You know what? I was pretty damn good at it back in the day.
The classics are the classics for a reason.
The classics are the classics. That was prehistoric, actually. But
Very good.
I just want to go ahead and say I've been playing since I was 5 years old when my dad first bought an Xbox, and I fell in love with the game ever since.
okay, now you know you weren't supposed to be playing with me.
Oh, no, not at all. It was pretty much illegal.
Yeah, Dad, wherever you are, yeah.
But I just want to say thank you for shaping my life, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And my question is, narrative-wise, which one was your favorite Halo, and which one was the worst?
Nothing controversial at all.
We're not going there, but my favorite up until recently was Halo 4. And two reasons. One, which you sort of touched on, which was the narrative. Because when we went in to do, Halo 4 was the first game for 343. And they were recasting both Master Chief and Cortana. In fact, it had already been done. And fortunately, and this is why I feel like I have such a debt for many reasons to the fans, is that when they beta tested this stuff, there was some pushback about who was voicing Master Chief and who was voicing Cortana.
I have one note. Master Chief sounds wrong.
Yeah, it was like that. And so they came back and we didn't know all this at the time, but found out later that that's what had happened, and they were coming back for us to reprise our characters. When I got to look at the story for Halo 4, I always felt like when we were done with 3, which was my last real involvement with the game before that, I thought, man, there's such a rich story here. There's so much more, just from a narrative standpoint, that can be told. And yet, here it is, because, at the end of Reach, really, the future of the game was very much in doubt. So, and I remember thinking, God, there's a whole big story here that really could be told. So then when I saw what they were doing with Halo 4, which was also the first time, to 343's credit, that I actually got to meet with the writers and the director and actually have a conversation before we went into the studio. And so you got to look at this, and I thought, yes, now we're getting somewhere. This is a natural progression, particularly of the relationship between the Chief and Cortana. So I was very excited about that. And then on another note, it's the first time Jen Taylor and I actually worked together in the same room at the same time and actually did an ensemble type work. Jen and I had never even met prior to the 10th anniversary of Combat Evolved. It was actually the first time we actually met at a function that Microsoft was doing in Seattle. And then shortly thereafter, we began recording for Halo 4, and they thought, correctly in my opinion, that our performances would be enhanced if we could actually be together and act this stuff out, you're sort of feeding off each other. So those are some of my favorite recording memories of my entire Halo experience. But Halo Infinite is pretty damn good. had different experiences there because, again, it was an advancement of the storyline, which I really liked, and it made some logical sense. There's some question as to whether Halo Guardians did that. I'll leave that up to you guys.
I think the popular consensus is pretty well known.
But Halo Infinite certainly did, and I think they brought the best out of the Bungie games and that, you know, on a number of levels, and also what had happened, you know, from Halo 4. So, you know, plus that they had a really good director by the name of Paul Crocker, who he really got Master Chief, and he really understood, in my opinion, the essence of what made the character appealing to people, and so him and I had a really good sort of feedback loop that helped my performance, and it's the first Halo game that when I actually watched it when the game finally came out, I wasn't cringing at my performance. And you know, which is not uncommon, I think, for actors. You know, you look at that's why some actors will never watch their own performances, because I was always like, you know, I could have done that better. You know, I could have read down that line or this line, whatever. In Halo Infinite, for the most part, I felt, you know, that I left my best work on the table. So, and that's all you can really do, you know. And then it's up to the audience to like it or not. But you have to feel like, yes, this is the best I can do, and it's either good enough or it isn't. And I honestly felt that with Halo Infinite, and I really liked the story. I liked the introduction of the new characters, and the possibilities that it creates for what may happen down the line. So.
Thank you so much.
We got a little over 10 minutes left, so let's try to get as many
I'll
as we can.
brief up my answers here a little bit. I tend to go
No, you can guess, do what you want.
Well, you know, Chief can't talk much in the game, so I get the opportunity.
It's the extended edition.
I'm extending the vision.
Hello. Like a lot of people in here, I think my first game was Halo Combat Evolved. So speaking of Halo Combat Evolved, I don't know how many people know this, but before it turned into the first-person shooter that it is today, it was actually going to be an RTS type game, similar to Halo Wars. So I was just curious, when did they bring you on for Halo Combat Evolved? Was it during the RTS period or after?
No, it was after. You know, it was a weird experience because when I came in, so Marty O'Donnell, who was the guy who cast all the voices and wrote a bunch of the music for the Bungie games and was an integral part of the development of those games. When he and I sat down, you know, we basically had a little conversation about what this game was, what Halo was, who Master Chief was, but they didn't even have, for me to look at a visual representation of who he was. So it was all, you know, just sort of conversation-based and personality-based. And I'm trying to remember, I want to say that the first recordings I did were, I'm going to say late 2000. So I think by that point, whatever changes they had made to the game that we all know and love today had already been made. And plus the fact that on that level, that's sort of the technical level that I really wouldn't, and especially in those early days, have been much of a part of anyway. You know, it was pretty much, here's the lines, read them, you son of a bitch, and be good at it. So that was kind of my direction in the beginning, you know.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. Over here.
So, one of the biggest moments for me throughout the whole Halo series was actually in the intro to Halo 2 when Chief turns around and just goes, "Sir, mission to leave the station to give the Covenant back their ball." What is the biggest moment that you can pick out for Chief in the Halo series?
Well, a number of them come to mind, and an equal number of them I forget. But one of which is towards the end of Halo 4, that whole series when he's on the flight deck with help me out. Say again? Yes, yes. And, you know, he's trying to have a conversation with the chief, and the chief is being his usual stoic, doesn't say anything. And then he says the thing about being a machine. And chiefs, that's the one thing that's sort of, and really, he's talking to himself in that moment, and he's saying, you know, she said that to me once, about being a machine. And that was a big line. I mean, I thought it spoke a lot about, you know, him trying to, you know, kind of reconcile this emotional side of him, which up to that point had been pretty shut down, or in fact really never developed. And there was that realization that, you know, there was some confusion about who was the machine and who was the flesh and blood. And that line always sort of, you know, resonates with me. And there's another line in Halo Infinite that I'm trying to remember completely about we're all, oh, no, it's, now lines are starting to flood into my head. I failed her. I will not fail you. Big line. Don't get me started, okay? Don't get me started.
Good afternoon, Mr. Downs. I'm sure like many of the people here, I grew up on Halo, and it's really what started my interest in sci-fi, books, movies, series, TV shows, and such things. You mentioned earlier you have a similar love for sci-fi.
Yes.
In your opinion, what is your favorite book series, TV show? Just what is your favorite sci-fi universe other than Halo?
Yeah, that's an easy one. 2001: A Space Odyssey was a game changer. It was certainly for me, but I mean, in the film industry, from a technical standpoint, and also, you know, sort of legitimizing science fiction as a serious art form. Not that there had never been a serious science fiction movie before that, but for me, you know, and I think for a lot of people, because it's considered one of the greatest films of all time, and it certainly rocked my world as a young lad when that movie came out. And it's, yeah, so it's right up there at the top. That's an easy one. And then, you know, there's Close Encounters is another one. The Alien movies, the first two especially, were not only great science fiction movies, but great horror films as well. And, you know, it's just, yeah. So I feel like us science fiction buffs have a tough road to hoe, because there's so much crap out there that you gotta wade your way through to finally get something that has some meat on its bones. But when you finally do, yeah, I think it's worth the journey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Downs.
People here to talk about how much Halo has meant to them and impacted their lives. Did you think it'd be this big when you sat down the first time and recorded that first line?
Not at all. I'll try to make this brief, but not only did I not think it, Bungie didn't think it either. In fact, they had no plans to make Halo 2. And the bigwigs at Bungie actually were against sequels in general. You know, they used to say, we will never make a sequel of anything. You know, it's one and done. Well, with the success of Combat Evolved, Microsoft had another idea. They said, fellas, let's talk about a sequel. And so no.
Fire with old money printing.
Yeah, you know. So, and thank God they did. But no, I had no idea it was going to be what it was. And, you know, and I've had, you know, several very meaningful experiences at this convention that it happens every single time, of how much it means to you. And it's just so, so fascinating to me and humbling at the same time that a video game, and why Halo, and you know, maybe I'm wrong about this because I'm too close to it, but and no other game seems to kind of transcend, just, your gaming experience, and the shoot 'em up aspect of it to some deeper level that is, I know for many of you, is very moving, and it's just, so when those exchanges happen, and as I said earlier, it does, it does impact how I view it, and how I view it going into, working on it the next time that may happen. And I admit that I don't fully understand it. I know I have, there's the things in my life that have, happened, or certain events that were game changers, to coin a phrase, so I relate to it on that level of how things like that, media events, just whatever it is, a game, a movie, a rock band, a song or something, that can literally change your life. And I see it happen, with this game all the time, and I find it fascinating and humbling, really.
Thank you. Again, just in the time minutes, so just a couple more into it.
Hey there, Steve. Have you ever felt like bummed when you heard that Halo Reach wasn't going to include your voice?
God, it was such a long time ago. And I did actually there's some cameo stuff in, I think I do some of the stuff that Jeff, is it Sticer, the Halo announcer? His name is escaping me. Sorry, Jeff. Double kill, triple kill. I think they let me do a few of those things. So I did have, sort of a minor thing in Reach, but no, I don't think it was. I mean, it was a different story, and it was not a Master Chief centric tale. So no, I wouldn't say that I was particularly bummed out about it, other than from a paycheck perspective.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hi, Mr. Downs. Real quick, right off the bat, no more request for time. I will say that Combat Evolved was my first ever FPS shooter. I didn't even touch Modern Warfare or Call of Duties. Sorry for all those hardcore fans out there. But no.
You're forgiven.
Halo Combat Evolved, first FPS, my first immersion into sci-fi and video gaming entirely, and I had the PC version, so I was playing off the console and monitor. With the new anniversary edition, I will always go back to the old school first Combat Evolved and change things. But with the other voice actors, did you ever have a give and take with David Scully, the voice actor for Sergeant Johnson?
No, unfortunately not. Jem is the only one I've ever had, and Jen and I have ended up becoming, pretty close friends as a result. But she's the only one. Keith David I've met, great guy, super talent. We did a convention together years ago, and I was the fanboy in that scenario. Like, golly, you're Keith David!
Wow! When you run around the clock for respite, they win.
You're the arbiter! But I dug the guy. I think the guy's an actor, and I think he's a giant voice talent. But no, I didn't have a lot of interaction other than with Jen. That was really it. And voiceover is like that, especially gaming voiceover. It's kind of a solitary profession. You spend a lot of time in a closet. Especially since the pandemic, I've spent a lot of time in a closet, my own closet. And I mean a literal closet, okay? I'm not talking an actual closet. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Thank you. So I got good news, bad news. Good news is this has been great, right? Let's put a button on things a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned the pandemic. What has it been like getting back out here and seeing the fans again? Certainly when you first started doing conventions, that was one thing, but coming back into this world, what has it been like getting the kind of love and the stories that people are sharing with you on the other side of this thing that all of us have?
Well, it's been fascinating. I mean, now, this is, I started, I think my first convention post-pandemic was early January in Sacramento. now we're back to, it's like we never left, and which is fantastic. It's the way it should be. And, but it is, I do, and I'm doing more of them now than, I think we're all sort of, I think I heard today they're talking about 120,000 people here. I mean, there's this pent up, yes, we gotta get out, And I think us as actors and animation people and all of us feel the same thing. We've developed, not we, certainly I had nothing to do with it, but this community has not been able to be together for quite a while, and the fact that we can, and hopefully safely and respectfully, we need to have this thing, whatever this thing is, we need to do it. And it's wonderful to be able to come back and share, especially with the new game. And the TV show and everything. It's really exciting to be, back out in the weeds on it. It's good.
So I got two little bits of housekeeping before we give him the send-off that only Master Chief can get in Florida. You're here the rest of the weekend?
We're here all week, folks.
All weekend, so
come by the table. Yeah,
go see him.
We're here today, tomorrow, and Sunday. So yeah, lots of opportunities.
If you've already seen him, you forgot, there's something that you want to go tell him, you didn't get a chance to ask your question, my apologies, but it's a true testament to this man that we had so many people lined up that we couldn't have gotten to everybody in 2 hours, let alone 1 hour.
Yeah, plus I wouldn't shut up, which might have
Just the worst. So can I get a round of applause for our crew that are doing this show?